New York shimmered beneath a curtain of mist, the city lights trembling like scattered constellations reflected in a restless sea. High above it all, Spider-Man soared through the night air, his suit gleaming red and blue against the silvery glow of the moon. Peter Parker had grown used to the rhythm of this endless waltz between rooftops, a symphony of wind, neon, and responsibility. But tonight the wind carried something else, a faint tremor that rippled through the fabric of reality itself. The air buzzed as if static were crawling over his skin. His spider sense screamed, not from danger he could see, but from something enormous and unseen, stretching far beyond the skyline. In a quiet laboratory on the East River, Dr. Curt Connors stared at a vial of shimmering green serum. Years of obsession had driven him here. He whispered to the memory of his lost arm, promising himself redemption through regeneration. But desperation is a dangerous teacher. He injected the serum, veins burning like molten wire. For a moment, it worked, tissue reforming, strength returning, until pain devoured him. His pulse exploded. Scales erupted across his skin, bones elongated, twisting. Within minutes, the lab was reduced to shattered glass and twisted steel as a monstrous shadow rose from the smoke. The lizard roared, primal and unstoppable, his mind consumed by a single instinct: evolution must spread. Peter swung toward the sound, expecting another petty thug. Instead, he landed amid chaos. Cars overturned, the ground cracked open, a green behemoth tearing through the streets. Their eyes met, student and teacher, hero and monster, and the world held its breath. The first clash sent shockwaves through the street. Spider-Man fought with everything he had: webbing, acrobatics, heart. But the lizard's strength was beyond human now. Claws ripped through concrete, his tail smashed through buses. Peter realized this wasn't a fight he could win with fists. He needed to reach the man trapped inside the monster. But before he could speak, the air around them shimmered again, reality twisting like glass under pressure. The sky cracked open. A rift bled light and sound into the world, spiraling out of control. From it fell another figure, crashing into a nearby rooftop. Another Spider-Man. Older, steadier, his movements heavy with experience. Toby-style Peter Parker lifted his mask, confusion flickering in his eyes. Where am I? Before he could ask more, another shape tumbled through, the lanky, fast-talking Andrew-style Spider-Man, landing beside him. The rift pulsed again, threatening to tear the city apart. Across the dimensional divide, something was calling a swarm of scales, claws, and reptilian rage. Elsewhere, in another New York now bleeding into this one, dozens of lizard variants stirred, each born from the same tragic experiment, each drawn by a single purpose. The multiverse was collapsing into a single battlefield. The three Spider-Men met atop a skyscraper bathed in moonlight. None spoke at first. They didn't need to. They all felt the same trembling in their bones, that quiet dread before a storm. The youngest, Tom-style Peter, broke the silence. If we don't close that rift, there'll be nowhere left to swing. Toby nodded, weathered but resolute. Andrew cracked a half-smile, masking his nerves. Together they leaped into the night, three silhouettes against the storm. The lizard, driven mad by the multiversal echo, climbed the side of a skyscraper, roaring into the sky. Behind him, portals flickered open, spilling out alternate lizards, some larger, some smaller, all vicious. Each carried the same hunger to spread their cure. The Spider-Men fought like poetry in motion, webs weaving through explosions of green fury. Tom darted through alleys, using his gadgets to stun the smaller lizards. Andrew flipped from wall to wall, his webs slicing through the air like silver lightning. Toby held the front line, brute-forcing his way through the chaos. His every movement slow, deliberate, powerful. The battle stretched across the city, from the sewers to the tops of bridges. Every moment was chaos rendered beautiful, webs glowing against the flames, reflections of masks and shattered glass, the symphony of courage echoing through collapsing buildings. Yet behind every punch, Peter Parker. Each of them felt the same ache. They weren't fighting villains. They were fighting broken men who'd lost themselves in dreams of perfection. As dawn crept across the horizon, the lizards retreated into the shadows, regrouping. The Spider-Men gathered at the Statue of Liberty, now glowing in fractured light from the rift hovering above it. They're not random, Tom realized. They're connected. Every lizard is drawn to that tier, something's controlling them. Andrew scanned the sky, his mask reflecting the swirling chaos. Then that's where we end this. Toby, voice heavy with wisdom, replied softly, and maybe save them. But deep within the rift, something even darker stirred, a presence watching, waiting. The lizards were not acting alone. A shadow, tall and serpentine, whispered through the dimensions. A prime lizard. A version of Curt Connors who had embraced the mutation completely. He had merged intellect with instinct, becoming a godlike hybrid. It was his plan all along to use the cracks in reality to evolve all worlds into one. Reptilian Empire. The Spider-Men didn't yet know his name, but the multiverse would remember it as the wind howled and the rift widened. The three heroes stood side by side, eyes locked on the storm. For the first time in their tangled histories, three different hearts beat with one purpose, to protect not just one New York, but all of them. The Prime Lizard's voice slithered through the air, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Evolution cannot be stopped. Spider-Man, you will watch your world shed its skin, Tom says narrate, not while we're still standing. The web-slingers launched into the light, swallowed by the storm, and the next phase of their destiny began. The rift blazed like a wounded sun above New York, spilling waves of green energy that rippled through glass and steel. Below, the city trembled as time itself faltered. Cars flickered between decades. Skyscrapers shifted like mirages, and every heartbeat seemed to echo across 1,000 worlds. Through that chaos swung three figures bound by one destiny. Their webs gleamed silver against the emerald storm. Three Spider-Men racing toward the center of creation's fracture. Behind them, the wind screamed with the roars of 100 lizards climbing, crawling, and slithering from the shadows of overlapping dimensions. The streets had become jungles of steel and scales. Toby's Spider-Man landed, first on the fractured crown of the Statue of Liberty, his boots scraping against cracked copper. His breathing was steady but heavy, the sound of a man who had faced monsters before, but never this many. Andrew's Spider-Man landed beside him, nimble eyes flicking across the horizon. And then Tom's Spider-Man shot from below, landing between them, the youngest, heart beating, the loudest in the silence before war. Above them, the rift pulsed once more, and the Prime Lizard emerged towering, serpentine, and impossibly intelligent. His scales shimmered like glass. His eyes burned with the cold precision of a scientist who believed himself divine. You can't win, he hissed, his voice echoing across dimensions. Every cure fails. Every spider falls. I am the next step. For a heartbeat, all three heroes stared up at him, not in fear, but in grim understanding. They'd seen too many men lose themselves chasing perfection. Toby whispered under his breath, almost like a prayer, "Then we remind you what being human means." And with that, they leaped. The sky erupted. Webs shot in every direction, glittering threads weaving through explosions of green fire. The lizards swarmed in endless waves, but the three Spider-Men fought as one organism. Toby became the anchor, his movements grounded, his strength measured. He swung through collapsing scaffolds, pulling civilians to safety even as he struck with bone-deep precision. Andrew moved like a shadow, quicksilver and reckless, luring clusters of lizards away from the rift before trapping them in intricate webs that hardened into crystal under the storm's heat. Tom darted through the chaos, using every gadget, every ounce of speed, every spark of youthful hope. Their rhythm was flawless, a dance learned across worlds and lifetimes. But for every lizard that fell, two more crawled through. The Prime Lizard watched from above, studying them with fascination, almost pity. "You still fight for what's temporary," he said, his voice booming through thunder. "I fight for what will endure." With a gesture, he unleashed a shockwave that tore through the bridge, sending shards of metal spiraling through the air. Tom barely managed to web onto a girder before the ground vanished beneath him. The Prime Lizard turned his gaze toward the heart of the rift, a swirling core of raw dimension energy, and extended his clawed hand. "Soon this world will molt into something better." The rift began to widen, swallowing everything. Toby swung toward him, shouting for the others to cover his flank. Andrew and Tom obeyed instantly, flanking from opposite sides. Toby landed squarely on the monster's chest, driving a surge of web fluid straight into the rift core's conduit. The explosion that followed threw him halfway across the island. Andrew caught him midair, webbing him safely against a broken monument. "You okay, old man?" he shouted over the storm. Toby smiled weakly. "I've had worse." But they were running out of time. The rift was destabilizing. Each pulse bent gravity in sickening waves. Buildings floated upward, shattering into atoms. Tom's spider sense screamed louder than ever before. And then, mid the madness, he saw it. The serum. In the chaos, fragments of Connors' original formula glowed near the base of the Statue of Liberty. If they could deliver it into the Prime Lizard's bloodstream, they might restore his humanity long enough to shut the rift. "Guys, the cure," Tom yelled, pointing toward the base. Andrew understood immediately. "We'll need a direct hit." Toby, wiping blood from his lip, nodded. "Then let's give him one." They swung into formation, 3 webs converging toward destiny. Andrew grabbed the serum canister midair, twisting it into a web projectile. Toby created a diversion, firing webs into the prime lizard's eyes. Tom catapulted himself from a falling helicopter blade, spinning through the smoke, grabbing Andrew's web line just as the serum launched. In that impossible second, time seemed to slow. Tom adjusted the angle, using the explosion's wind to accelerate. The glowing vial cut through the darkness like a falling star and struck the prime lizard square in the neck. A howl split the heavens. The monster staggered, clutching at his throat as his scales began to shimmer, dissolve, reform. The mutation was unraveling. The prime lizard's roars turned to Human Chris as Curt Connors resurfaced inside the chaos. His trembling eyes met theirs. "Peter," he whispered, though which Peter he meant, none could tell. "Stop the rift, before it consumes you too." The serum's effect spread through the hive-mind connection of every lizard. Across the city, the monsters began to change, shrinking, shedding scales, returning to the broken humans beneath. The storm dimmed, but the rift still churned. The balance between worlds was collapsing. Tom's voice shook as he shouted, "We have to seal it now." Andrew looked at Toby. "How?" Toby's eyes darkened with resolve. "Someone has to go inside. The energy needs a stabilizer, living conduit to reverse the surge." Tom froze. "That'll kill whoever goes in." Toby's answer came like a whisper carried on wind. "Then let it be someone who's already lived enough before the others could stop him." Toby shot a web toward the rift and pulled himself upward. Andrew grabbed his wrist, desperate. "Don't do this." Toby smiled gently, that same soft, fatherly smile that had steadied them both since the moment they met. "It's okay. You're me. I'm you. We all carry the same weight." And with that, he let go. He soared into the light, vanishing within the heart of the storm. For a moment, all of time froze. Then, with a thunderous crack, the rift imploded, folding inward like the final breath of a dying star. The shockwave rippled across the sky, scattering the remaining portals, healing the fractures in reality. The clouds cleared. Morning sunlight spilled across the battered city. Tom and Andrew landed on the shattered statue, staring into the quiet where the rift had been. The world was safe, but their mentor was gone. Silence stretched until Andrew whispered, "He did it. He really did it." Tom looked up at the sky, voice trembling. He saved everyone. As the sun rose, they walked through the wreckage together, helping survivors, webbing loose debris, holding up fallen beams. Reporters called them heroes, but they barely heard. They only felt the hollow weight of sacrifice, the cost of every victory. Hours later, when the last siren faded, a faint shimmer appeared above the Hudson, a pulse of golden weblight. Toby's voice echoed faintly, not as sound but as presence. "You're never alone, kid. Keep swinging." And then it was gone. Tom stood at the edge of the water, mask in hand, watching the sunrise reflect off the city he had nearly lost. Andrew joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Think the multiverse will ever rest?" Tom smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but as long as someone's out there to protect it, we'll be fine." The camera of imagination pulls back past the skyline, past the clouds, into the quiet vastness of the multiverse. Somewhere across endless threads of reality, countless Spider-Men swing through their own dawns, carrying the lessons of sacrifice and hope. And far beneath that infinite web, a faint heartbeat echoes Dr. Curt Connors, human once more, lying amid the ruins of a healed world, whispering through trembling lips, "Maybe evolution means finding your way back." The city breathes again. The wind carries laughter instead of screams. And in that fragile peace, one truth endures. With great power comes the courage to heal what power once destroyed. The screen fades to black. The logo appears in faint silver threads. Spider-Man, Web of the Lizards.